Very good evening, and thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we continue with the video, be sure to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And a massive thank you for your support in recent times, seeing the both the views and subscriptions continuing to rise. Was a pretty epic weekend just gone here at Mark Vogan Weather on YouTube. Not only did I have the long-winded tropical outlook on Saturday, but I also had a bonus European outlook as well for you to get your teeth into. And obviously, there was the live stream yesterday afternoon at 4 p.m. So you can look back at all that content during the past weekend at your leisure if you wish. And I want to start off today's video by actually not looking so much at Europe, but actually Central America up into the US Gulf region. There was upwards of 62 inches, 62 inches of rain expected to fall in a fairly widespread area. Now that 62 inches is the exception as opposed to the rule, but we've got a major flood situation unfolding this week as the Central American gyre sees an expanse of moisture flooding up through Central America, the eastern side of Mexico, and up into Texas and the US Gulf Coast region. There is going to be a significant impact from this flood situation through the course of this work week, and I will probably do a separate video on this through the course of the week. I'll probably do a tropical outlook at some point discussing this because we've got a rather active MJO pulse in the area at the moment as well, and that is probably enhancing and driving this this explosion of moisture. We're not watching just one, but possibly two developments as well. Tropical storm Alberto would be the first name on the Atlantic Hurricane Season 2024 list. So I would not be surprised if we see Alberto develop here. We may even see another spin up before the end of this week. So we'll keep an eye on that quite closely. But anyway, very interesting times to come. The Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation is expected to go into positive territory. This is the situation seen by the CFSV2 for week one. So we've got the very strong ridge of high pressure with the heights close to 590 decameters over the mid-Atlantic region of the United States. Strong southwesterly winds. We are going to see some record-breaking heat and day after day of low, mid, even high 90s across parts of the upper Midwest through the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and into New England here. What is happening with all this is you're saying to yourself, this is a European outlook. Why discussing North America? Well, it has a lot to do with the change that we're going to start to see developing. We've got a very strong jet between the trough up over far northern Canada and the ridge over the southeast of Canada. We've got strong winds roaring through this region here out into the North Atlantic basin, and what we're seeing is the trough developing here across the North Atlantic. So we're recasting the upper level pattern, and we are going to therefore start to see higher pressure from the Azores move up into the UK. It's essentially the return of the Westerlies. The pattern tends to have a kind of element of doldrums during the latter half of April through the month of May. The jet stream becomes very, very slow, very weak. We'll have a very blocked up weather pattern. What tends to happen, and I think some of the reason for this return of jet stream winds as we move through the early portions of summer and beyond, is the fact that we're increasing the strength of the subtropical high. We're building heat further north, and therefore we're increasing that temperature gradient further north, and therefore we see the jet becoming reactivated, so to speak. So the return of the westerlies, like clockwork, is coming back into play once again, and we're essentially going to change the overall pattern that we haven't essentially seen so far, with a stronger Icelandic low and a stronger Azores high pressure system. Now, if we look at this is, like I say, the CFSV2 for the 500 millibar pattern for the upcoming week. You can see here the strong ridge trough over the North Atlantic up into Greenland here. We've still got a legacy of low pressure that is starting to weaken as we progress through the course of this week. We still have a cool northerly flow that is going to continue to see temperatures averaged even slightly below average, especially across more northern areas. but we're likely to see a cool start to this week and a warm end to this week as the pattern changes. But it's that ripple effect, Pacific over North America and then across the Atlantic and into the UK and Ireland. That is the change that we're going to see. And look at the difference here by the time we reach the period between the 24th and the 1st of July. We've got not quite as prominent of a high, but you notice it's stretched out more right the way across the Atlantic, and that is your positive North Atlantic oscillation pattern developing here. And we may even see some of this heat out of eastern North America actually getting transported across the Atlantic and in towards the UK and Ireland here. Some of the models are kind of waxing and waning on some of that air mass getting transported, propelled across the Atlantic and towards the UK. But notice here that we have the realignment of the upper pattern here with a trough between Greenland and Iceland, ridge of high pressure strengthening now over the UK and Ireland, southwesterly winds. We may see quite unsettled conditions across the northwest of the UK versus warmer, drier, and sunnier across the southeast. Quite a classic, typical pattern for this time of the year. And then by the time we reach the period between the 1st of July and the 8th, notice here that we're starting to see a little bit more of a ridge developing back over the North Atlantic again. So we may actually go back the way once again as we move into the first full week of July, but that remains very much to be seen. Now, this is the current GFS 850 temperature profile here. You can see that we have that area of low pressure that had been dominating quite heavy rainfall in many areas during the course of the weekend just gone. That is now centered just to the east over the North Sea. We've got that northerly flow here. You can see the chilly air mass coming back into play once again, but it's a short-lived push of chillier air from the north here. Then you start to see a flattening out, and you notice here as we start to increase the temperature gradient over North America, we're starting to see the jet becoming stronger and the trough digging over the North Atlantic here. And as it does so, it naturally then starts to attract higher pressure, extending out of the Azores up towards the UK and Ireland here. But it may be a few bumps in the road. We need to watch for a little feature here over the near continent. You notice here that there's a little bit of a northward pull of some of this very warm air across the heart of the Mediterranean, trying to lift north, trying to push towards the southeast. But we may have a dynamic situation here where we need to watch out for showers and thunderstorms developing. But we kind of flirt with some of this warm air. It actually is seen by the GFS just across the North Sea in the Low Countries, but generally the UK is in slightly less warm air. And then as we continue to play right the way through, we are going to see areas of low pressure develop along that boundary between chilly air over Greenland, extending south, and the very warm air across the North Atlantic, the central mid-Atlantic region here. And it's as these areas of low pressure then deepen, you're then going to start to pull some of this warmer air northwards. The GFS not overly convincing with any true real heat, but the ECMWF is a different story. This is what the chart is looking like by the time we reach the Wednesday of next week here. So this is the 26th of June, and we have that trough deepening over the North Atlantic, and therefore we're building that warmth northwards here. So this is a very different pattern to what we've seen so far, and we will need to keep an eye on any kind of systems within the Atlantic as well, trying to throw heat northwards. That then can create a lot of uncertainty with regards to the overall pattern. So anyway, that is it for today. We will look at the next week's potential first surge of summer in the next day or so here, looking at how warm it may get. We may get into the upper 20s, for example. Who knows? Still a wee while away, but we will look at that in a bit more detail in the next few days, so stay tuned. I would greatly appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, and then you can continue to watch this evolving situation as we go forward. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. See you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.